In this video, I'm going to be showing you all of the best fusion combinations, as well as where to find each of them. I'll also be ranking each one, but keep in mind that these do have different uses, and different fusions are stronger in different situations. On top of that, I'll be showing damage calculations. First up, we have the Thunder Gliocorn on either a one-handed sword or a spear. The one-handed sword can be better for AoE attacks, like doing a spin attack on multiple enemies, but the spear is better as far as reach and attack speed goes. The Thunder Gliocorn is great for keeping enemies stun locked, and for most normal enemies, they won't even get a chance to fight back as long as you keep stun locking them over and over again. One of its major weaknesses is that it's not able to break through armor, so if you're fighting an armored enemy, you need to either switch to another weapon or shoot the enemy with a bomb arrow. I like to fuse this on the Scimitar the 7, and have an attack up level 3 buff running. With this combo, each hit does 132 damage, and it also has the electrifying effect. Using this in the rain or on a wet enemy that's either been hit by a splash fruit or a Seedon's buff will cause your electrifying effect to do AoE damage. This can set you up to switch to a higher damage weapon and finish them off. I would say the easiest place to find one of these is from the Thunder Glioc at the Colosseum Ruins, which is to the west of Hyrule Field Skyview Tower and to the southwest of Lookout Landing. You'll also get one of these by killing any of the King Gliocs. Next I have the Gloom Club on a spear. I like to use this with a light scale trident and a level 3 attack buff. After the game's hidden spear nerf, this is going to do 163 damage per hit, and this weapon is going to have really crazy reach. Most bosses won't even be able to hit you if you just stand at the extent of your spear's reach. This means that you can just walk around enemies and poke them from a distance, and the majority of enemies in the game aren't even going to be able to touch you. This fusion combo would probably be my favorite in the game if it didn't come down to the fact that the Gloom Club will break off of your weapon pretty quickly. Fusing the Gloom Club to another weapon also takes away its negative effect. The Gloom Club is dropped by certain variants of Phantom Ganon, so right now I'm at the Kamatuka Shrine, and to the southwest of here, where I showed on the map, is where Boomerangs and Ganon will spawn. Make sure to come here when it's late in the day or preferably nighttime, because a lot of these Phantom Ganon spawns only come up at nighttime. I'll show you where it is on the map again, and it's right to the south of the giant skull on the map in Akala. The next fuse I'm going to show you is the Glioc Frosthorn. I like to use this with the light scale trident and a level 3 attack buff, which is going to do 118 damage on normal hits, and when the enemies are frozen, it will do 354 damage per hit. This fusion has a lot of the same utility as the Thunder Gliocorn, but this one you also get extra bonus damage when the enemy is frozen. The Frost Gliocorn on a one-handed weapon can also destroy big groups of enemies. Using a haste buff is a great way to find openings and maximize your DPS with this weapon. You can get a Frost Gliocorn from a Frost Glioc or a King Glioc. An easy to find one is to the northwest of the Snowfield Stable, and this is also northwest of Lookout Landing. Next up is the Forest Dweller's weapons with a Puff Shroom or a Muddle Bud. When these are fused to Forest Dweller's weapons, they can be used over and over. The Muddle Bud will make all of the enemies attack each other. You can combine this with the Forest Dweller's sword charge attack, and this will make a whole group of enemies turn on each other. You don't really have to do anything at this point, you can just keep refreshing the Muddle Bud on them and they'll all kill each other, but you can also interfere to make it go faster. I would say the Puff Shroom is even more deadly. You can put it on the Forest Dweller's spear to give it a lot of range, and very easily make the enemies lose track of you, which will allow you to do sneak strikes. Sneak strikes do 8 times damage, so most high level weapons will be able to one-shot the enemies that can be sneak striked at this point. You can find both Muddle Buds and Puff Shrooms all around the depths. They usually spawn around the base of giant trees in the depths. For the Forest Dweller's weapons, you can go to Korok Forest and go into the Great Deku Tree, use Ascend twice from the center of the tree, then talk to the Korok up here. He'll ask you to play a game, accept, and the sword will be right above him, and the spear will be over here. Another really powerful fuse combination is a Boomerang with either a Frost Emitter or an Iceless Alphos tail. A frost emitter on a boomerang is an extremely safe way to freeze enemies from a distance. You can freeze huge groups of mobs really easily, and also freeze basically any enemy in the game that can be frozen with very little risk. Once enemies are frozen, they take 3 times damage, so all you need to do next is switch to a strong weapon and finish them off. These 2 fuse options have way better hitboxes when thrown than any of the other frost fuses. So even though you might not be doing quite as much damage as you would with a frost Gliocorn, it's significantly easier to freeze enemies with this. I will say though that even though the Iceless Alphos tail increases the hitbox of the boomerang and does slightly more damage, it was easier to freeze the enemies with the frost emitter, especially large groups. Whether you prefer better freezing capabilities or a slight increase in damage is subjective. For me, I like to use freezing boomerangs to set up for other weapons, more than just using them for pure damage. There's a Zonai dispenser that gives frost emitters above the Lanayru Skyview Tower. It's over here on the map. You can find Iceless Alphos for the Iceless Alphos tails around most of the snowy regions. This area through here is a decent place to find them. I personally found mine in the Tabantha Tundra, but there are a lot of places to get them. All of the other fuse options are arguably better at doing different jobs than number 1, but my top pick here has the most DPS capability of any fuses in the whole game. As you'll see in this clip, I kill a Thunder Gleeok before its health bar even appears, so right here I'm using a Molduga Jaw with attack up food buff and bone proficiency armor on the light scale trident. This means each attack is going to do 220 damage per hit with this setup. Scimitar the 7 is also very good with this setup, especially if you use its charge attack on groups of enemies. The Scimitar the 7 will do 248 damage with this fuse and buffs. I would have added the Silver Lionel Saberhorn to this list, but I feel that this setup is just all around better since it does more damage, and the Molduga Jaw is capable of breaking armor and rocks too. This fuse setup is also incredible on a giant pristine boomerang. I recently made this weapon, and I think that it's probably my favorite weapon that I've made so far. Since it's two-handed, it gets a hidden buff from the game, and it can also hit twice since it's a boomerang. On top of this, it's ranged. There's a full guide on how to make this, as well as a way to do some cool boomerang combat tech that I'll link in the description. Killing Moldugas will drop the Molduga Jaw, so here are some locations. The first one I'm going to show you is north of Gerudo City. Then there's one down to the southwest, south of the Palu Wastelands. And to the east of that, there's one slightly north of East Barrens. I do want to mention really quickly that the pristine Zora Longsword and the pristine Knight's Claymore are also very good alternatives to use the Molduga Jaw especially with, but I personally don't like the decreased durability or the requirements to get their damage increases, but that's subjective. That's it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this.